Hello and welcome to Colin Bradley Artcast. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley.
In a
Hi, mate.
different setting today. We're in holiday on holiday in Cornwall this week, so I am somewhere different, not in the boiling hot log cabin in our garden.
Well, you've got a bit of fresh air, I think, coming in as well, haven't you? That'd be nice.
Absolutely,
The
yeah, it's
Cornish air.
lovely. Cornish air, windows open, birds are singing. It's really lovely. Yeah, really nice. So we were travelling yesterday, which would have been Friday when we would normally record. So this is going up a little bit later, but we're gonna have a lovely week. I'm really looking forward to it. How are you, Dad?
Okay. Yeah, we're fine. Thank you. Um, we're trying to take as much of the weather in as we can. We're in today, but we'll be out tomorrow and getting a bit of sunshine. We've been out quite a bit this week, so we've got our vitamin D shot, and there's plenty of it around at the moment. The sunshine, which is lovely.
Yeah, it is. It is, and it is absolutely roasting in London. So it's really nice to be down by the sea,
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
where it's a
It's
little bit
interesting.
cooler.
I'm one end and you're the other. I'm east. You're west.
Yeah,
Can't get a lot further. Um, you know. Otherwise, we get into the sea. Both ends, which is nice.
yeah, yeah. Really lovely. Um, you've been busy this week then. You sent me a picture yesterday, I think, or the day before. Might have been yesterday, of a picture you've been working on. And I think we discussed this last week that you might be doing a bird. I can't remember
No,
now.
I said I was going to do a portrait. That
Yes, you
was on.
did. Yes,
That
you
was
did.
on.
You had two portraits that you were looking at doing. What happened?
Well, it was all set, really. I actually started the ball rolling on the portrait, and then I was checking out my references, and I found this lovely, lovely little bird. And I say he's little; he's not very big. This bird. I thought, God, I've got to do that. But more that the setting it was in convinced me. It's a wood duck. That's what it's going to be, and very, very attractive. Probably one of the most attractive birds I've seen, and it's it's floating, I think, on either a tree trunk or a log on water. So you've got a little bit of water there, but it's different. It's going to be very different. And this tree trunk is the one that convinced me to do it. I thought this is great. You know, we're looking for alternative subjects now, and I hadn't seen anything quite like this one. And then you've got a combination of the bird and the water. I think it's going to look good when it's finished. It's already looking good. I'd advance it a little bit further than the picture that you're going to see, but not much.
So, well, let's look at this because I think it's reminiscent of the mallard duck that you did with the shine on the feathers on the top of the head. So you must be calling upon some techniques and things that you've done in the past.
Yes, yes. Well, I'm always doing that, but you're right. Yes. What amazes me, but are you showing it yet or not? Are you keeping it?
Yeah, I'll put this up on screen. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I can talk about it then. When I looked at the picture, I went through my pencils as I always do. Oh, I love this one, that one. When you're kind of undecided, you pick a lot more pencils than you think you're going to need. And this was the case here. So far, I've used about a third of the pencils that I actually got out. And I don't think I'm going to use too much more on the bird. There will be a little more on the log, but it surprised me. But I do this deliberately because, for one thing, it makes it easier for people who are going to be copying this animal, so they don't have quite so many colours to worry about. But the other reason I do it is because the less pencils you use, funny enough, the better product you get. And I found this in the past. So you minimise the amount of pencils that you need, and that helps you because you make each colour work for itself. You see what I mean? It doesn't have a lot of support acts. I hope that makes sense. It probably doesn't to anybody who hasn't done any drawing, but it certainly is surprising me how little I'm actually using. The top of the head, for instance, which is where you've got that iridescent look. I think it was only about 4 colours that made that up, which is not many to create the effect that I got. But anyway, that's the first surprise. But it's lovely to do. I love doing all animals and subjects, but the birds are particularly interesting, I find, and I don't think I've done as many as I perhaps should have done. Although thinking about it, there have been quite a few.
You went through a phase of doing a whole bunch, I think, of catching up, and you did like 6 on the bounce with lots of different colorings and styles and things. What I noticed in this picture, this work in progress picture, is that you started the background or the setting around the bird already. What was the reason behind doing that?
Well, again, people know that if they've seen pictures I've done before on a similar idea. I use the background as a foil to the detail of the animal. In other words, you've got to have a contrast, and I have to be assured of the contrast I'm going to receive. Now, good old 230, was it 230? Yes, 230. That was the light grey, light to medium grey paper pencil. Now that one has been one of my most popular pencils anyway, and I had used it in the animal before I got to the background. I'd used it in the animal anyway, so I thought, well, that probably is the right colour to use, and it's turned out to be exactly the right colour. As I say, I've advanced that background slightly more than you see there. It's just gone round the edge. But I did that deliberately because it gives you more than the contrast. It gives you something to work against. You see what I mean? So I found that when I was going around the top of the head and round the beak and so on, I missed actually having that tone and colour to work against. So that's when I made my decision at that stage to actually put the background on. I wasn't intending to do it all round the animal, but did I do it all round the animal in that picture? I can't
Yeah,
remember now.
yeah, you have,
Did
yeah.
I? Oh, I
Just
did.
around, which is interesting. I was going to ask you, it's just around the animal. You haven't put it all over. You've just done it.
I have now. Yes,
Ah,
I have
okay,
now.
okay. So that is
But I
something
didn't.
that you would do.
Well, I'd go around the animal first of all, and then the reason I do this is, Steve, because it's a bit of a boring job to do. I don't find it boring, but people would find it boring if I was to fill it all in. So I do the important bits and narrate it so that people understand why I'm doing it, and then off camera, I fill it all in because that does save time. And the other thing is, when you've got a picture where it doesn't matter, you're not going to put your hand all over it, you can get away with that. You can't, if you're going to put your hand back in and pencils back in, you might smudge the background, and that's not a good idea. But when I can, I do. So that's what I've done now. And but what is interesting, that's water there. That's all water. So the grey is the actual colour of the water, or the tone of the water. So what I've got to do now is to use colours that are very unusual. I think people will find this fascinating. Colours, I'm not going to spoil it and tell you what the colours are, but the colours are match the to give you a little clue, the breast of the duck it gives some way towards the tones that I'm going to be using. And that's all I'll say. But it's a very, very attractive. It's going to be very attractive, the background. And that's only a background. So we've got a background on the bird that's working out fine. Then we come to the log and the foreground. Now the foreground is water again, which I'll have to use similar colours to the background, but I can make them a little more detail, or make it a little bit more detail with some reflection and so
It
as
doesn't
well.
sound easy.
Oh, yes, I
So
do.
is this part of the challenge for you to have something where you look at something and you think this is going to be challenging for me, as well as interesting, because I don't feel like you've done something like this before for students in terms of this amount of water and
No, I haven't.
reflections, and it does sound like this foreground and background combo, particularly, is going to be quite complicated for people to achieve. So that's all part of the appeal, I suppose.
Well, part of the appeal to me is I don't know what I'm going to be doing. I don't know how I'm going to be doing it. And this is like an adventure, really. And I mean, I've got ideas, obviously. I wouldn't start the picture if I didn't have some idea of how I was going to operate it. But I'm constantly amazed at when I put one colour on and I think, oh, hang on, I could use this colour, and then, oh, wait a minute, if I use that colour, combined with this colour, I make that colour. Now, I can't predict that in advance. It's impossible to do that. You've got to wait until you build your colours up. That's why I say it's so important to get the base colours in. But on the other hand, you've also got the difficulty of overworking. If you overwork your background colours or your primary colours and your base colours, if you overwork them, the colours you're going to put on top won't work. You see how you get that difference? Now, with experience, when you've experienced and you've used the pastel pencils as long as I have, you kind of instinctively know what colour will go with what colour. But as you will see when I show the colours that I've been using on this picture, a whole bunch, I don't know, I didn't count them, but there's an awful lot of them. You see it at the beginning. When you see it at the end, you'll see there's probably half of those colours I've actually used. The odd colour I've actually had to go back into my range to find them, because you get the odd one that you think, oh, I think this will work, and I didn't anticipate that.
I think it's remarkable that you would go into a picture. I can imagine a lot of our students, when you said that you would go into this not really knowing how, the part of the appeal is not really knowing how you do it, would just terrify our students completely, thinking, I can't believe that is, part of the thrill of going into a picture. But that just goes to show how much confidence, that people can get to, a level that they can get to where they don't, part of the excitement is they don't know how they're going to achieve it completely and entirely. But that is all part of the thrill. And I would say that is absolutely a mindset to be striving for, after so much experience and years of doing this. I just think it's absolutely fascinating that mindset is a positive. It's a positive thing to have that kind of unknowingness of doing a picture is a good thing. I think that's
Well,
brilliant.
what you do, Steve, is you work on instinct. Once when you've done your work, you know your subject, and you've got the confidence to be able to produce an end product. You work on instinct then, and colours almost flash into your mind when you're doing it. Pencil numbers flash into your mind. Think, oh, if I use that, what's it? Oh, I use that, and very often, as in the case of this background, when I put the 230 on, that's easy. That's the base colour. That's the original base colour. I use the sand coloured paper, the sand pastel matte paper. So when the grey goes on, it has a kind of an influence of that. Not markedly. You don't look at it and see, oh, I can see the sand through it. but it has an influence. Well, once that goes on, then you've got other colours to put in. So what I always do, and I did in this case, did an experiment. But what's interesting about the experiment is you think, well, what if it didn't work out? Well, you can't think like that. It's got to work out. But what I do, I don't want to do the whole picture with this colour and then put all that colour on and then put that colour on and then find, oh, hang on a minute, I perhaps shouldn't have done that. So to play safe, really, you do one section of the picture and there was one particular colour. I'm not going to give it away, but I put the first couple of colours on my experimental bit, which is each one little corner. And then I thought, hang on, I can see another colour here. And that's a foreign colour. You know, I've talked about this before. It's a foreign colour. I thought, I've got to put it in because I can see it. But how on earth am I going to justify it? I did find the colour I wanted. It was one of the original colours, that, so I'm probably going to be using it in the tree trunk. I put that on, and then I had a slight wobble. I thought, is this going to work out? As soon as I put my finger on it and blended it, it was perfect. So you don't know until you reach that point if you're right. But because it's an experiment, had that gone wrong, I could have easily made it darker, for instance.
The importance of experimenting first.
I think you've got to do that. I think it would be wrong to actually go ahead and go into it without any really true rehearsal. That's probably a good word. You're rehearsing your little bit of experimental background in this case. Sometimes it works on other things as well. I don't necessarily do that with the animals, though. I'm much more positive with them, but backgrounds and water and to a certain extent the tree trunk, you kind of got a little bit of artistic license with that. But with the animals you don't have so much.
Interesting, so fascinating. I feel like I learn something new every week about your approach to this and your mindset, and it's you know, a lot of this is about the work, is about the pictures itself, but there's so much more to it, and I hope that people find it really interesting hearing about your mindset and the way you approach these things from an artistic level of painting, but also just in general your approach. I think it's really interesting. So yeah, thank you for that, Dad. So you're working on it, and maybe you'll have an update for us next week on this one?
Oh, it'll be finished next week.
Excellent.
People can look forward to that. Oh, no,
I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. It's going to be a good one. Excellent. Well, I hope everyone's found this interesting. As always, if you have any questions or anything you want us to discuss, get in touch with us, and we'll talk about them in upcoming episodes. In the meantime, look out for the finished picture on next week's episode, which I know I can't wait to see. I'm sure everyone else is going to be itching to see it as well. But thank you so much for sharing that wisdom and knowledge with us, Dad. I'm going to go back to my holiday now in Cornwall.
Enjoy.
So we'll see each other next week. So thank you everyone for watching and listening. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley.
Enjoy your week.